Keep your eyes open.
So yeah, Ambulance Life, a paramedic simulator, is a disaster. Not totally, but still a disaster. Anyways, Ambulance Life, a Paramedic Simulator is, from its name, a game about being a paramedic. It's good and all, but like what I said, it's a little bit of a disaster. Anyways, because I played it on PS5, one of the good few things is the haptic feedback, which you can definitely feel when you are driving. That's pretty much it. Next is the siren that is coming out of the controller is definitely a nice touch. I like that because it kind of immerses you even when you're using a pair of headphones. Anyways, the idea of playing as a paramedic, responding to emergencies and making life-saving decisions really sounds exciting. I actually liked that when I first saw it, especially also because I'm from a medical field. The game does a decent job of simulating the unpredictability of medical emergencies, and I like that you have to monitor a patient's vital signs during transport. It makes it realistic, makes you feel like you are a paramedic. And also there is what we call, or what they call, a catastrophic shift. Kind of adds more difficulty to your progress, and at the same time it introduces more on the triage, which if you don't know, it's more like deciding who gets to be treated first and so on and so forth. So that makes the game a little bit more challenging because you do have to organize and plan out what you have to do in order for you to try to save as many people as you can. Unfortunately for me, that's where the good thing kind of ends. Mostly because the game is quite buggy. And I've experienced a lot of collision issues. At times, my character's feet were halfway through the ground, the ambulance floated a bit, and I even had a moment where my partner, the stretcher, and the patient all were just floating. And if you were able to see the intro, that happened to me as well. But the first thing that caught my attention would be the cables from the medical equipment would look really weirdly erected when you are transferring the patient from the stretcher to the hospital bed. That definitely takes me out of the game every time I see it. And if you look closely, you can actually see that from the blue clothing, it looks really weird. I don't know what you call that term to describe that, but it definitely is kind of painful to the eye, and it's always going to be like that. And another thing when we talk about visual bugs is the textures. The wounds are so pixelated that I could barely tell a burn from a bleeding wound. The blood pool doesn't even change in size if there is blood coming out of the patient, and the bleeding itself looks unrealistic, which really breaks the immersion. Moving on to the sounds, the audio and the dialogues, it's also another weak point. At first, the NPC dialogue sounds fine to me because it's the first time I'm hearing it, but the moment you move slightly away, it kind of fades unnatural.
Try to retrieve as much information as possible. The more we know, the better we can help.
Oh my god, the dialogue.
Yeah, I live right across the street.
The dialogue itself is so repetitive, and I mean, you already know what their other responses are once you hear their first dialogue, making all the patients and bystanders feel like they're just copied and pasted. And for a character, they never speak. The only time they speak is when they are your partner. That's pretty much it. Now, for me, it was kind of useless that we get to see a description of our character because it does nothing to the gameplay. Your character does not interact with the other characters or with your partner. Your partner does speak, but you don't. And whenever they do speak, it's the exact same lines with all of the characters. And speaking of characters, by the way, most of the NPCs that are like the bystanders during an accident, probably useless because whatever they say doesn't really help you that much. At the same time, or sometimes they even use a wrong response, making it really weird and funny.
Came out of nowhere. Oh my god. I hit it, didn't I?
Now, the driving simulation starts off pretty fun, but it gets repetitive pretty fast. The AI cars always switch lanes the same way. Whenever you have the siren on and you want to go through on the right side of a 3 or 4 lane road, they only move apart in the middle, which is so annoying. And after a few hours, I was kind of expecting more kinds of vehicles. There are none. There's no bikes. There is no motorbikes. Plus, because you are driving, you can't actually honk. Which kind of for me breaks the realism because whenever I do drive in a game, I always want to honk. Now, if you definitely played games with a lot of driving, you are definitely going to hate this one because there is no visible signs of damage whenever you crash or hit a car with your ambulance. Oh, by the the way, the only damage that you can see is from the NPC cars. Your ambulance, totally fine all the way. No smoke, no dents, no damages whatsoever. Now, I do have to mention this one, being a simulation game, it kind of lacks the consequences. If you ignore a call out in classic mode, nothing major happens. It does not change, or it doesn't get picked up by a different kind of ambulance. So that kind of makes you think that you're the only ambulance out there, despite the game introducing you to a whole team. The same goes for crashing or hitting other cars. Your score isn't affected by any way when you do have any kind of crashes along the way while transporting your patient. At the end of the day, Ambulance Life, a paramedic simulator, feels definitely half-baked. It has moments where it gets things right, which I love, like monitoring patient's condition, but that's practically it. It has a lot of bugs, repetitive gameplay, and the lifeless interactions that definitely pulls you out of realism, which I think is the main goal of a simulator game. With that said, I think and I believe that you should not be playing this game unless you are trying to learn about anything that is related to the medical field. This could be a good learning source, but that's practically it. I don't even think this game is made for the real paramedics, because if they do made it for them, why? Just why? Why not let the paramedics play a different game which is not about their job, right? So for more impressions of different kinds of game, please do check this video out. If not, you can always check out my other videos right here. By the way, my name is Dark, and I hope that I'll see you again next time.